everyone.
Morning. Good morning.
Welcome back home. You look nice and rested.
Yeah. Steve said, "Are you barely awake?" I said, "No, I've been wide awake since like 4 in the morning. It's the afternoon. I'll be rough." But Richard, Steve, Jeff, anybody, what I missed last week? Anything crazy?
The buildings are standing. We have succeeded, even though you took off. And before we get started, I would like to wish everybody who celebrates a Lashana Tova, which is Happy New Year in the Jewish world. And anybody who's not celebrating, celebrate with us anyway. So Happy New Year to everyone.
There you go. All right. Should we talk about the University of Miami or the Miami Dolphins before we get going, or leave it there and just move on? I think you said.
How'd your Georgia teams do this weekend?
Yeah. We're going to leave it there and move on. All right, let's go. All right, so Broward County, 325 new active listings, single family. Looks like it's holding pretty constant last 3 weeks. So fall market, new inventory coming on the market, pretty consistent in the single family. Looks consistent last 3 or 4 weeks of about 130 properties going under contract, active under contract, and about 80 to 90 going pending. So if you put them together, about 220 properties every week are going into some kind of pending status out of the 325 new coming on the market. Probably a pretty healthy, decent ratio right now in Broward County. In terms of closings, we had a bigger week last week at 198, 151 obviously the week before, but certainly not the 200 numbers we were experiencing in August. But that's to be expected in the month of September. And certainly you can look at the withdrawn, expired, canceled. On the condos of Broward, 370, a big week of new condos coming on the market. 97, 86, in that 80, high 80s to anywhere from 85 to 100 are going active option or under contract, and then 60 to 50 to 60 are going pending every week. So about 140 every week condos going on under contract, with 370 coming on. Not as healthy as a ratio as single family, but less than 50%. It's doable. Closings, 115, 116, 117 last 2 weeks, kind of averaging about 120 a week, I would guess, over the last 4 weeks. Condos coming off.
Hey, Brett, here it's interesting though. Closed sales are usually lower than pending, because closed sales would be a lag of what went pending minus some fallout. Your pending numbers seem to be half of what the closed numbers are, and I'm wondering where that difference is. I hadn't picked that up before.
Yeah, unless we're adding the active option
Right.
or active under contract and pending together. But I definitely see what you're saying. Look at it in single family, it's the same story.
Pending. Right, active under contract and pending added together makes sense.
Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out.
In Miami-Dade, single family 299 went on the market in the last 7 days, 320 and 361. So it's certainly slowing down a little bit in single family, but it looks like 85, 77, 91 active under contract, and 95, 92, and 103. So about 180 a week are going under contract, and about 320 are coming on the market. So more than 50% of the single family are popping every week. That does not include the inventory sitting on the market. I'm just comparing brand new inventory versus what's coming off the market, right? Like what's going on and what's coming off. And then pendings right around 100, and closings looks like we had a big end of month, August, obviously, but then we got into the fall, September, 100, 111, 128 seems to be picking up a little bit, which I expect with the interest rates coming down the way they have over the last couple of weeks. If I jump to condos in Miami-Dade, 388, 426, around 400 new condos are popping the market every week. You got about anywhere from 60. We had 85 in the last 7 days on active under contract, and then 85-ish a week in the pending. So what's that, 170 a week or going under contract? And then on the closings, same story. In Miami-Dade, 3 weeks ago it was 71, then 96, and now 105. So it feels like it should be heating up. And I guess maybe the question for everybody on the call is, do you feel increased activity out there in the marketplace? Do you feel it increasing because of interest rates, more people inquiring? What's the feeling out in the marketplace? This microphone is on, correct?
Come on, guys,
Yeah.
take yourself off
So,
mute and talk to us.
I've been saying it for 2 months. Activity has been increasing. I said in our team meeting about 2 months ago. If you look at the total active sales that are on the market in Broward County in certain areas, so I said in our team meeting, I don't know if this is the bottom or if we're bottoming out. Sean Ross had a message on social media on Facebook on Friday. It was similar to that message. So yeah, activity is picking up.
I agree. I'll concur with Dan. At the open houses, there are a lot more buyers out there that are motivated.
Got it. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, Peter, Nickel Levi.
Yeah.
If a lot more motivation, and down to the terms of, yes, they already have properties that are listed and they're having these conversations with their sellers agents. Cause I'm saying, well, how serious are you guys? And they said, well, we actually, price lowest in our neighborhood and we do have a lot of the better features, but we want to move. And that's what's taking for us to do that. And they're seeing their property on the market for just a month and moving on to somewhere else if they really need to. So a lot of great conversations are being had with some of these agents that are different locations, not just in Fort Lauderdale. I'm talking south of Miami, north of West Palm, that understand that a lot of people are overpriced and they need to, be properly priced to actually move the property. So when they're out open house shopping or, at open houses and looking at properties, they know they can put an offer in or actually get into that communication. So when they check off that is my property under contract, they understand it.
Yeah, and to that point, if you're sitting at listing appointments, it's certainly getting easier to have a discussion about price because the media has done such a good job of just letting sellers know that the market is not great and that it's a buyer's market. So I'm asking the question: do you watch TV? And it's been easier to have that discussion about price. That said, less people want to sell because they think it's the wrong time. So you also have your data with you and show them it's not all doom and gloom and that buyer activity is picking up some, to secure the listing. At least that's what I'm experiencing.
Good feedback. Good feedback. All right. 2 big headlines hit the newsreels in the last 7 days. First one is Zillow's being sued over deceptive flex agent tactics. I don't know what kind of teeth this lawsuit has, but it's certainly interesting that they're going after the giant Zillow around their business practices around referral fees, and it's reached class action status apparently. So could this disrupt the aggregator way of doing business? Of course. Um, I actually, one of the few conferences I attend outside of Keller Williams every year is the Zillow conference because I want to hear their perspective on real estate. So it's in October, and I'll get more information, obviously, at that conference from them. But certainly quite interesting. It's the same law firm that went after the NAR settlement. So obviously they're everybody that has a law degree gets paid, and everybody else just gets disrupted. But anyway, that's worth a mention. The other thing that hit the newsreel this morning is apparently Compass has agreed to acquire Anywhere, which Anywhere is Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Sotheby's, all the traditional corporate style brokers. And I don't know what this means yet, but I wasn't going to not mention it on the industry update call because they hit the news cycle this morning. But I can tell you, I bet you a lot of your friends at some of these companies are not going to be that excited about it. I think some will be excited and some will be feeling like the brand they've been a part of for ages and ages is dying in a sense. But we'll leave it there. It's worthy of a mention. Okay, interest rate 6.35. We got down under 6.25 for like a hot minute, and then the Fed lowered the rate, and then all of a sudden the interest rates went up. And I think that's confusing to most people. So what was interesting is there's this article on Inman that talks about what is the Federal Reserve and how does it actually impact real estate. And we've done our best at trying to explain this over the years, but the easiest way I think you could explain it to a consumer is the Federal Reserve controls the rate that banks borrow money. Then banks actually control the rates that consumers borrow money from. And they do have relationship, but they're not directly related. So when the Federal Reserve lowers the Federal Reserve rate, it makes it easier for banks to put money into the marketplace, but it doesn't necessarily, contrary to what most consumers believe, means that the interest rate's going to go down. And consequently, it actually went up just a little bit this week. And I think if you're getting caught up in conversations about this, you certainly should read articles like this so you can have some level of explanation to the consumers. But here it says, how does the Federal Reserve influence mortgage rates? Though the Fed doesn't control interest rates directly, banks are generally free to set their own rates. Its decisions and policies can push mortgage rates up or down. To understand how this works, let's look at three key pieces of Fed's playbook. The federal funds rate, that's the rate they move up and down, right? Interest on reserve balances. They require banks to hold money and allow them to earn interest on those holdings. And then open market operations, which they can influence interest rates through open market operations. Like the strategy involves the Fed buying and selling securities on the open market. If the Fed wants to stimulate the economy, it can increase the amount of money in circulation with treasury notes, mortgage-backed securities, stuff like that. So the purpose of this is actually is what creates a capitalistic and a democratic society that controls the value of the US dollar and doesn't allow it to get out of control. And one of the examples, if you have any friends or know anybody from, I think it was Venezuela the inflation rate of Venezuela got so out of control that the currency in Venezuela was basically worth nothing. And so the Federal Reserve protects the US dollar from that ever happening, meaning a year ago we had inflation that was getting out of control. So that's when they started raising the Federal Reserve rate to bring inflation down to actually protect the value of the US dollar long term. And to our demise, so went interest rates. And yet we're waiting on that relaxing, and we're starting to see that relaxing. And in terms of interest rates in the real estate industry, I actually think where rates are today is probably a pretty close to a normal balance of where mortgage rates should be, period. And I would love them to be less because that means more people would buy. I would not like them to be higher, but there's actually a pretty healthy balance between 6 and 7% around the cost of buying money or borrowing money. And we're kind of pretty close to what that normal, healthy balance is. But I thought this article was interesting because every time the Fed starts making movement, the consumer gets confused around what that really means. And I think they turn to you as a real estate agent to explain it, right? Richard, Steve, Jeff, anybody on here got a different way of explaining it than what I said?
No, not really. I mean, it boils down to the fact that I think most agents don't understand how it works at all. And I know it took me a long time to mentally understand that why don't the rates go down? So I think having just a general knowledge, like you said, is really important. And it's a good reel for people to talk about.
You know, what's funny is I did go to college and I did take economics in college, and I think I'd studied it to pass the test. And then you get out into the real world and you go, what is inflation? What is unemployment mean? What is Federal
Yep.
Reserve? And you start to actually realize what these things really are in real life in the business world, right? Richard, you were going to say something.
With it. Problem is the average person has no clue. They've never studied economics. They don't really read anything past the headlines. And so last week, I pulled up a chart of interest rates for the last couple of months. And right before the Fed reduced the rates, they were 6.35. They reduced the rates by a quarter point. Average person would think, okay, so the rates are going to go down to 6.1. They're going to drop by a quarter point. Well, they didn't. They dropped to 6.26. And now they've gone back up again. The average person out there, including most realtors, have no clue that there isn't a direct correlation between what the Fed does and what interest rates are. Now, the problem for all of you on the call, they've also been talking that the Fed will probably reduce rates 2 more times this year. And you're going to have buyers sitting on the sidelines going, well, I'll wait now. I'm going to wait for another month or another 2 months because they're going to reduce it twice more. Rates are going to come down under 6%. As you're the one, you need to read these articles so that you can talk to them about what the reality is and why there isn't a direct correlation between the two.
There you go. Jeff, you had a question?
Yeah, it's more of an answer. Here's a prime example to get realtors to be really a differentiating statement when it talks to their clients, right? I mean, if you know knowledge about any kind of economics, even the basics of these interest rates, you're going to go far and above the guy you're competing with or the lady you're competing with. Let's face it. And if the interest rates go too lower, there's really the consequence of that is you're probably going to be more competitive in the market too. You're competing with other agents and other buyers. So, knowledge is key in this business, and here's another position to take to be smarter than the guy next to you or the lady next to you.
There you go.
Yep.
And
guys, just another hint for you.
Economics class.
Yeah, Brett, one of the news articles, I don't recall if you sent it out this morning, is dealing with AI. So if you have any questions or you're really not sure about how to explain this type of thing to your clients, to other people out there, just go on to chat and ask it the question, is there a correlation between Fed rates and interest rates? How do I explain to a buyer why interest rates are not dropping as far as that? This is where artificial intelligence can help you communicate with your people better.
Yep. I found this article interesting, and look, I may have said this story before, but I was in the team leader role in Dallas, Texas, when a thing called Facebook became like popular. And I remember standing in front of a room of about 100 people, and half the room would cross their arms, lean back in the chair, and make the comment, "That's for the kids." And they literally said that I'm not playing with Facebook. And you fast forward 10 years and go, I couldn't even imagine the real estate industry without social media these days. Well, AI is going to have that same effect. Like there's going to be people that just aren't leaned into this. And you're going to wake up in a few years and go, I can't imagine our industry without it. And in here, there's some surveys, and it says the findings revealed that many realtors, or 58% of survey respondents, have used ChatGPT. That's telling us 42% of the real estate community has never even logged into it. That's wild to me. The chatbot, 20% of respondents reported using some AI daily. 22% use it weekly, and 27% use it a few times per month. So you think about your competition or the agents going into a listing appointment. There's probably agents you're competing against that might use it just to write a listing description. And then there's other agents. So I'm almost wondering if your listing presentation in the future doesn't talk about how you leverage AI in the process of selling their house and
Hey,
your
Brad.
expertise around it. Yeah.
Yeah. What I found out really interesting is this is right underneath the highlighted part
Yep.
that the 46% said that they had a neutral or no noticeable impact on their business. It's unbelievable. And I will tell you that probably in the last 5 people I brought on into Fort Lauderdale, 4 said they used ChatGPT just to find a brokerage.
Interesting.
That's their search engine. They're not Googling anything.
Yeah.
So it's just
Well, I'm happy to hear they found
blows
you.
me away.
So that's good to go. All right, moving on.
Yeah. Well, we
All
have
right.
to blog more per mega.
All right. So a couple other things I wanted to hit before we run out of time. On Housing Wire, they're talking about non-QM or qualifying mortgages earned its place at the mortgage dinner table. And, they kind of had gotten a bad reputation in 2008, 9, and 10 in the Great Recession. And to give you a definition, if somebody's a W-2 employee with a credit score and money to put down, they go to a lender, they can get a qualifying mortgage based on certain mortgage criteria from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the big underwriters of mortgages, right? But then there's a whole lot of people that don't fall into that category, i.e., real estate agents are one of them. Meaning we're 1099 independent contractors. We don't receive a W-2. Our income tends to fluctuate more than a standard paycheck type employee. So there actually is a need for non-qualifying mortgages in the marketplace. And they're talking about how we're probably going to start to see more products like this in the near future. And whenever markets get tight, I think that the banks are motivated to figure out how to get more people into loans. And yes, there are bad players that do bad loans, but there certainly are good non-qualifying mortgage products out there, and you've got to learn how to navigate that with your clients. But I believe, and the reason I put this in the article list this week is I think you're going to start to see more of this in the near future. I don't know when the lenders come and talk at your team meetings if they're talking about unique products outside of the typical, mortgage that they offer. But I think you're going to start to hear more about non-qualifying mortgage products. Have y'all heard any at team meetings thus far, wherever my team
Yes.
leaders are? Yeah. I
Yeah.
think you're going to start to hear more about this. Now, then this is, I'm not advocating for this next website. I'm just showing you wild and crazy because this is an industry update. So there's somebody sent me this over the weekend. This company called With Jubilee. So now this company goes, we'll increase your buying power and keep more capital in your pocket when you use Jubilee to buy a home and save up to 95% on your down payment. And then you get down here to the fine print. They own the land, you own the house. And they do a ground lease, which sounds totally unconventional and wild and crazy. Yet a lot of commercial real estate has been done this way for years. And I'm not advocating you go try to use this product to put people into houses, but this is non-qualifying kind of stuff that starts to show up when the market's a little tighter and we're coming out of it. And I was like, this is wild. And I mean, they're all over the country: Austin, Seattle, San Francisco, Boston, Jersey, LA. I mean, I think we're going to start to see more and more of this. And I just want it on your radar to be cautious, but not immune to it, if that makes sense. You definitely have to fact check it and do some recon when stuff like this shows up. But the reason you got to know about it is your consumers will stumble upon it before you do and bring it to the table. And you got to be aware of what's going on. Any thoughts?
Well, yeah. How does it?
Canada's been doing these for non-residents for years, and so is Mexico to some degree. There's a lot of countries that do a non-resident version of this.
There you go.
Hey, Brett, we also see that a lot in mobile home transactions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the other thing is interest or the tax deduction on the lot or the land. You're not going to get it, correct? Not on this.
Not on the land, but you would get it on the house. I mean, I was just reading through the website and it's saying you buy the house, we buy the land, you pay mortgage and the land lease, but you can buy the land at any time for up to 99 years or recombine if you decide to sell the home. It's a way to get people into houses for less money, it sounds like. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on it. All right, next article. Luxury latest big trend. And I curious your opinion on this, but this article is talking about luxury real estate is starting to be sold fully furnished. Some of the high-end luxury real estate is starting to be sold fully furnished as part of its description. And the furniture has already been selected, appropriately placed throughout. The art has been curated where it works for the house. It's like having a designer touch without having to go out and pay extra outside of the deal. And I'm wondering, what's the strategy here? Like, if you're representing a builder of super high-end luxury, I want to ask Brady Sandall, by the way, quick plug, if you're not aware, the luxury symposium is coming up in a couple weeks in the Palm Beach area. And if you're a dedicated luxury agent, it's a don't miss event. Just heads up. But what are your thoughts on this? Where's my luxury agents on here?
One of the things we talked about at Symposium last year was luxury buys experience. And their experience, and so much of this is second, third, fourth homes.
Yeah.
So they're buying the entire experience of the package that they're seeing, and it's curated down to the details of the towels. I mean, it's all done. They're buying the entire package. They like what they see. They want the experience. They want the visual sensation. They want the olfactory sense, the whole thing. So it's definitely a trend.
You know, Dave, just thinking this through for a minute. If I were to go buy a house in Costa Rica, the last thing I'd want to do is try to figure out how to find furniture and go fill the house up, right?
I'm just laughing because we're going to Costa Rica in 2 weeks to buy a house.
Oh, you are? Oh, even better. Okay, we'll buy it fully furnished. But flip that. What percentage of luxury real estate is bought from international buyers?
I don't have that number.
I can tell you it's pretty close to 50%.
Big.
And I'm guessing they don't want to figure out how to furnish it either. Yeah.
A lot of them. I'm currently working with somebody right now that's looking up in our Jupiter area. This is going to be the third house that I sold them. They have that mentality almost like Mark Zuckerberg, where you know what, I'm not going to go ahead and decide what kind of shirt and what kind of pants I'm going to wear every day. I'm just going to go with black and blue jeans. And in this particular case, same thing goes with my house. You know what, I'm going to go ahead and this house looks good just the way it is. How much? And the only difference really, even sometimes, is whether or not the price of the furniture is included in the house or whether or not it's a separate issue.
There you go. I think it's just something to pay attention to. So appreciate you guys. We tried to start and end on time. It is 9:30. Go have a good week.
Thank you so much. Have a great week.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Brett.